I was 9 years old the day my life was stolen. Not by violence, not by accident, but by the quiet decisions of adults who thought they knew what was best. My name is Evelyn Grace Carter, and I am 101 years old. Look closely at my face, and you will see the map of a very long journey. Every wrinkle, every line tells a story. Every scar on my heart carries a lesson that life forced me to learn. I was born in 1923 in a small coastal village in Sierra Leone, West Africa. The ocean was my lullaby. The wind through the palm trees carried stories whispered at night by elders who knew the value of endurance, who knew that life was not measured in wealth but in resilience. My childhood was simple. My childhood was beautiful. My childhood was stolen before it could fully bloom. My father, Samuel Carter, known to everyone as Samu, was a fisherman. His hands were rough from pulling nets, his eyes quiet and steady. He believed in dignity and perseverance. "Evelyn," he said, "a person is not measured by what they own, but by what they endure." I did not understand the weight of those words as a child. I would come to understand them in the years that followed, in ways a child should never have to. My mother, Ruth, was the heart of our home. She sold vegetables and cassava bread in the village market. Her hands were never still, braiding hair, cooking, mending clothes, but her laughter filled every corner of our small home. She taught me that strength could be gentle, that courage could be quiet, and that love was an action, not just a feeling. I was the youngest of 5 children. My brothers teased me, my sisters sneaked me extra food when my mother wasn't looking. Those early years were full of warmth, full of the rhythm of family, full of the innocent freedom that would soon be stripped away from me. The first time I truly understood fear, I was 9. The land had been hit by a terrible drought. The crops withered, the rivers ran low, and the ocean that had always given life was stingy and cruel that year. The village struggled to feed itself. My father's nets came back empty. My mother's baskets at the market remained unsold. Desperation has a way of bending people to decisions they will later regret. It was then that a man came to our village. His shoes were polished, his clothes clean, and his voice carried the promise of opportunity. Education, work, a brighter future, he said. My parents, poor but loving, trusted him. They handed me over, believing they were opening a door. But sometimes the door people promise is not the one you walk through. Instead of school, I was taken to the city and placed in the home of a wealthy merchant named Mr. Ibrahim Kante. I was expected to work, clean floors, carry water, cook, wash clothes. I was a child, and yet the world demanded I act like an adult. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining my village, the smell of the sea, my mother cooking cassava bread, my father mending his nets, and I would whisper prayers into the dark, begging for survival. Even in that darkness there was light. An older woman named Amina noticed my quiet suffering. Her back was bent from decades of work, but her spirit was unbroken. She taught me to read from old newspapers wrapped around groceries. She whispered the lessons of dignity and patience, and she reminded me that the human spirit can shine even when everything else conspires to crush it. She became my secret mentor, my guardian in a house that felt like a cage. Years passed. At 16, another storm arrived. I was married to Thomas Carter, a man older than I could comprehend, chosen for me by circumstance rather than love. Fear gripped me. I did not know how to navigate this new world of expectations, of obedience, of a life I did not choose. Yet Thomas, though not a prince, offered something rare: respect. I do not expect you to love me today, he whispered on our wedding day, but I will spend my life earning your respect. Those words became my lifeline, the anchor in a world of uncertainty. We survived. We built a life together from the ashes of our forced beginnings. Thomas worked long hours at the docks. I sold food at a small street stall. Every coin we earned was a step toward a future where our children might know the freedom we had been denied, education, choice, dignity, and when the chance came to leave everything behind and start anew in the United States, we took it. The journey was terrifying. The language was foreign. The work was grueling. People judged us for our skin, our accents, our history. But in America, we found possibility. We raised 3 children. We taught them lessons carved into us by life itself: respect, perseverance, resilience, and the unwavering belief that our circumstances do not define our potential. Life continued with its mix of hardship and triumph. We worked tirelessly, Thomas in warehouses, myself cleaning offices at night. We faced discrimination, exhaustion, loneliness, yet every struggle taught us more about survival, about strength, about hope. We learned to celebrate small victories: a child's school report, a neighbor's kindness, a coin saved. Those victories became proof that our labor was not in vain. I have survived illness that should have taken me, heartbreak that should have broken me, and loss that should have crushed me. Each time, I discovered a deeper well of strength than I had known existed. Survival, I realized, is not merely enduring. It is choosing hope, kindness, and courage repeatedly, even when life offers nothing in return. Over the decades, I have seen humanity's capacity for cruelty and kindness, despair and joy. I have seen the tides of history sweep across the world, changing societies, reshaping communities, and yet the struggles of girls like I once was remain. I tell my story not for pity, not for fame, but so that the lives of children sold, girls married too young, and women silenced are not forgotten. I have learned that survival carries a responsibility. Every scar, every tear, every moment of endurance is a lesson meant to guide others. It is not enough to live. We must live with purpose. We must teach the next generation that dignity cannot be stolen, that kindness is powerful, and that hope can endure even when the world tries to extinguish it. My children grew up under these lessons. We celebrated their successes with joy, and we faced their failures with love. We guided them not only with words, but with the example of our lives, hard-fought, resilient, never surrendered to bitterness. Today, all 3 of my children are grown, retired, and surrounded by families of their own. They ask me sometimes, "How did you survive so much?" And I tell them survival is not just endurance. Survival is choosing to hope again, even when every bone in your body is weary. Survival is finding light in darkness and holding on to it with everything you have. I have lived through droughts, wars, displacement, grief, and heartbreak. I have known hunger, fear, and the quiet cruelty of life, but I have also known laughter, love, joy, and the extraordinary kindness of strangers. Life has taught me that the strongest people are not those who had easy lives. The strongest are those who maintain their humanity through suffering, who resist bitterness, who love even when love is hard to give, and who teach others to rise. At 101 years old, I am proof that the human spirit cannot be crushed. I am proof that even when life begins in theft, fear, and sorrow, it can still end in dignity, love, and hope. I am Evelyn Grace Carter. I was sold as a child. I was married at 16. I survived, I thrived, I endured, I loved, and I tell my story so that every girl who hears it will know Your life is yours. Your voice matters. Even in the darkest circumstances, hope can shine brighter than despair. Your past may shape you, but it does not imprison you. Pain can harden the heart, or it can deepen wisdom. Choose wisdom, choose courage, choose compassion, choose hope. Even when your story begins in struggle, it can still end with dignity, strength, and purpose. And so I ask each person who hears my story to remember, protect children, value girls, listen to the voices that are too often silenced, fight injustice wherever you see it, because one life, one story can change the course of the world. I am 101 years old. I am Evelyn Grace Carter. I survived what many would call impossible, and I stand here as living proof that even the most stolen childhood can give rise to an unbreakable spirit, a voice that refuses to be silenced, and a life that shines with hope, courage, and dignity. Even after we arrived in America, life was never easy. The streets were busy, noisy, and indifferent. People walked past us without seeing us, and sometimes I felt invisible, like my struggles, my history, my very existence could be ignored. Thomas and I worked harder than ever. He loaded cargo at the docks from sunrise to sunset. I cleaned offices at night while carrying the ache of my past in my bones. There were nights when I sat alone in our small apartment, exhausted and aching, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my mother and father, wondering if they ever thought of me. I remembered the smell of the sea, the laughter of my siblings, the taste of cassava bread fresh from my mother's hands. Those memories became both a comfort and a pain, a reminder of what had been lost and what I had survived. Raising children in this new land brought its own trials. Everything was unfamiliar, the language, the customs, the expectations, and yet I poured all my energy into giving them what I had been denied. I wanted them to have choices, to have education, to know their worth. I taught them to respect themselves and others, to see hard work as an honor, to never let the circumstances of their birth define the limits of their life. I remember teaching my oldest how to read when he was just a boy. We sat on a threadbare rug in the corner of our apartment, candlelight flickering, the pages of the book worn and soft from use. His small hands traced the letters I had learned to read from newspapers as a child. In that moment, I understood that survival is not enough. We are here to teach, to nurture, to lift others as we rise. But life did not stop testing us. Discrimination followed us like a shadow. People judged us for our accents, our skin, our customs. I learned quickly that the world is not fair, and sometimes justice must be created with your own hands, in small ways every day. Thomas faced injuries at work. I faced exhaustion and moments when I questioned whether we could keep going. Yet we found strength in one another. Together we endured, one day at a time, one challenge at a time. Raising children while working long hours was a balancing act of survival and love. I taught them to dream, to hope, to fight for what is right. I told them stories of Sierra Leone, of our village, of the people who had shaped me, and I reminded them that even when life seems cruel, there is always a way to carry yourself with dignity. Our children grew into adults who carried our lessons forward. We watched them achieve things we had never imagined. Graduate school, start careers, raise families of their own. And through them I saw the fruit of survival, not just endurance, but transformation. Life that had begun in suffering had become life that could inspire and uplift. Even as I grew older, I never stopped reflecting on the path I had walked. I remembered the girl sold as a child, the young wife fearful of what was to come, the mother striving to provide more than her own childhood had offered. And I realized something profound. Every hardship, every tear, every moment of despair had shaped me, yes, but it had not defined me. I had the power to shape my own story, even when it began in someone else's hands. I have lived through a century of change. I have seen the world transform in ways I could never have imagined as a child. I have seen technology, politics, wars, and social movements sweep across the globe, and yet the human heart remains constant in its need for love, compassion, and respect. I have learned that resilience is not just surviving the storms, but teaching others how to stand tall in the rain. One of the greatest lessons I have learned is that hope is a choice. It is a conscious decision to believe that the next day can be better than today, even when everything in you wants to surrender. Hope carried me across oceans, across continents, across decades of hardship. Hope carried me through grief, illness, and loneliness. Hope carried me into the arms of my children and the laughter of my grandchildren. And now at 101 years old, I look around at the life I have lived and I see its beauty in full, not in the ease or comfort, but in the victories over fear, in the triumphs over despair, in the love we built and nurtured against all odds. I am proud not because life was kind, but because I was brave. I am proud because survival became not just endurance, but empowerment. To those who hear my story, I say this: your past may be harsh, unfair, even cruel, but it cannot define you unless you allow it. The world may try to silence you, to diminish you, to take from you what is most precious, but you have the power to choose. You have the power to rise. You have the power to build a life of dignity, courage, and hope. My story began in loss. My story began in fear. My story began when I was sold, when my childhood was stolen, when I was forced into marriage at 16. But my story did not end there. It became a story of resilience, of strength, of love, and of survival. I am a living testament that even when life begins in darkness, it can shine with extraordinary light. At 101 years old, I can tell you, the strongest people are not those who had easy lives. The strongest people are those who carried their humanity through suffering. The strongest people are those who refuse to let the world harden their hearts. The strongest people are those who, despite all odds, choose to love, to hope, and to rise. And so I leave this message for every girl, every child, every person who feels trapped by circumstance, by fear, by the world. Do not let anyone steal your spirit. Do not allow your past to dictate your future. Pain can either harden you or deepen your wisdom. Choose compassion, choose courage, choose hope. I am Evelyn Grace Carter. I survived. I endured. I thrived. And I tell my story so that the world may know even the most stolen childhood can grow into a life of dignity, strength, and hope. Even when the beginning is cruel, the end can be radiant. Even when life is harsh, the human spirit is stronger.